All right, thank you. Tonight is the regular monthly meeting of the Clinton Inland Wetlands. It's Tuesday, October 1st, 6:59, 7 o'clock in the Rose Room as well as online. Sherry, would you mind calling roll time?
Lawrence Edwards,
He's on the way.
Edward Alvarino,
Here.
Michael Florio.
Here.
Thomas Welch,
Here.
Bertram Schmitz, Ryan Tarzel.
Here.
Scott Harley,
Here.
Robert Corson,
Here.
Chris Horvath,
Here.
Douglas Elliott.
Here.
Can we see Douglas until Larry shows? So you're voting member until Larry decides to show. Before we get into the item agenda, is anyone here for 56 West Shore Drive? No, nobody? 56, okay. Didn't want anyone sitting through public hearing for an application that's just gonna get pushed to next month. So item agenda number 2, minutes from our previous meeting. So I'll need a motion on the regular monthly meeting minutes from September.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve those minutes.
Okay, second, any discussion?
Who was the second on that?
Mike.
Any discussion on the minutes? Those voting in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? Okay. Agenda number 3, receipt of applications filed after the filing of this agenda.
None were received.
Okay. All right, on to item agenda number 4. This is the continuance of a public hearing. It's IWC 24-1, 327 East Main Street. Greg Fettis PE is the applicant, Shoreline Partners LLC is the owner. This is for application for regulated activity within 0 to 50 feet of the inland wetlands or watercourse. This is for a new mixed-use development, one-way traffic around the building, parking, stormwater system, retaining walls, and underground utilities. Assessors map 85, block 69, lot 121 in the zone B4. And this is a continuance of our previous meeting. I guess, do we want to, Abby, should we talk now about left on the application? Would you mind giving us?
Sure. So the application was received by the commission a number of months ago. There are in this horizon of statutory days allowed per application. In order to get to the public hearing and open the public hearing, the commission has used all but 10 of the extension days available. So essentially, the public hearing has to close within a 10-day time. And so you're receiving more information tonight from the applicant. We have our town engineer and soil scientist in the room to also give their testimony and feedback on what's been submitted so far. But some of that information was submitted today. It's just the natural sort of progression of where the application is. And so as this progresses, as you talk about where the hearing stands, if you are looking for additional information in response to Mr. Bettis's presentation, there is the potential to need to extend to a special meeting because you don't have enough days within the statutory allowance to get all the way to your November meeting. So I talked to Chair Harley before, and we talked about the potential for October 10th as a special meeting should the commission find that they need additional information or want more on the record. So that's where you stand. Once the public hearing closes, there are 65 days for the commission to render a decision. So you're not obligated to make a decision if you close the hearing, but there is a limit on how long the hearing can stay. That, and then that continuance is also something that happens with the applicants.
Point of order, so if we get all our answers tonight and go over everything, we can close the public hearing.
You have that option.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, basically, if there's anything outstanding past tonight where questions aren't answered, or we don't have enough information back from our engineer to close the public hearing, we would need a special meeting next week in order to get the information into the application, and then we can close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Then we have another meeting where between then we can digest the information and make a rule. And we just need to close it by how many days
It was
after?
35 days from the day that the hearing opened.
And once the public hearing closes, we have how many days to render a decision?
65.
65. So just keep that on your mind as we go through the time. All right, Mr. Bettis. Continuation, I guess, good starting point would probably be highlight anything that you've changed since we last talked. And maybe it'd be helpful to go through engineer comment.
Okay, actually, I was, Greg Bettis with Bettis Engineering. Connecticut, here representing the owner and the applicant, regarding the development of Maine. If you kind of look at the plan, there's not a lot that's changed. It's a lot of, not going to diminish their comments, but there's some, we had some typos, we had misrepresented a couple of areas by a little bit. So when you look at the plan, really, you look at the plan, this plan, you look at the one from last month, pretty much gonna look the same. So I don't really think there's anything to talk about big picture on here. I think I just want to go through the most recent comments. You want to break, switch things up, or are you good?
Okay, no, you're good. Larry, you're seeing this as soon as you said.
Okay, you started. So we did receive review letter on Friday afternoon. And I'm just gonna say the child was go through and tell you what we did. And also 116A, which is part of the review letter, is probably the one that's, I wouldn't say damaging, but it kind of said we didn't do our job to ensure that we're creating a wetland that's going to be sustainable and prompt, basically. But again, I'll leave that to the wetlands folks. George will speak to that. He wrote a separate letter addressing 16A. So I'm going to go through the items, there's about 9 or 10 that were not addressed to the satisfaction of the town engineer and the town soil scientist. So number one was the litter program. Kind of went through the stormwater quality manual, and they kind of addressed litter a couple times a year, spring and fall, that you should kind of go around, pick up litter, get a more extensive program than that. The applicant, who's going to be an operator on the facility, does send his employees to basically, they get extra break time. If when they go out on their break, they actually, go around and pick up litter. So that keeps his sites clean. Again, we think we exceed our trash removal recommendation manual. But we can submit a formal document that gets approved by the wetlands enforcement officer if necessary. And that can get passed on to subsequent owners. I don't know how we control subsequent owners and how they treat or deal with the site, but we're open to this. We want to keep things like skipping down to number 5. We inadvertently left off HydroWorks, the 2 hydrodynamic separators located here and here. We left the sizing through the program that sizes it, so takes out the required total suspended solids. It treats the volume of water. They're not big areas, so we ended up with the smallest hydrodynamic separated by HydroWorks. But we included that in the submittal to the website today. Also, we had labeled both separators number 1, so we switched it to number 2. So this is the grading plan you're looking at. We revised it, sheet 5, it's revision 4. We didn't revise the whole site. We're just limited. We're just limited to sheet 5, the grading and drainage. Items, does anybody need a copy, extra copies? Thanks. They had brought 6 totals, so one more up for grabs. So I think these are the numbers that were on CHA's review letter. So number 6. Is regarding the standard 2 in the stormwater quality manual. And this gets a little tricky because we have a lot of off-site drainage that's coming down that's not affected by our development. But we included it in our drainage calculations. So it's kind of extremely challenging to take water off-site that that we're just kind of allowing to pass through and reduce it by 50%, we're not doing anything to it. And I think if you read the actual standard, talks about reducing the flow by 50% 2-year storm. Which stormwater discharges from the site using structural stormwater BMPs, which is best management practice. So I tried my best to describe that we actually did that. There's about 3.45 cubic feet per second that are basically following all of this area up here, following the channel down. We are grabbing a little bit of it in some of the created wetland pond, but by no means can we reduce that by 50%. So I think the intent is met, because the water that's actually coming and entering our site are reduced by more than. So just to summarize, at the bottom of that first page of the letter, 5.81 cubic feet per second for the 2-year storm that's existing. 3.45 CF to be determined by that's it leaves 2.36 CFS, which we were able to reduce down to 3.9. So I think closer to 85% reduction of what we can control. Otherwise, we have to kind of get into further into the wetlands to try to slow the water down. That we're not have to make more of a disturbance in the wetlands in order to try to slow water down. That's not effective. Hope that's clear. Anyway, that's a question. We haven't answered. Number 8. So we have negated, and I agree with Chuck on this one, we negated the infiltration of the drainage calculations. This site is just not geared to infiltration. With the amount of and so forth, it would just be challenging to try to make that work. So we eliminated it. We're not assuming any infiltration, even for, this is one of the added things we added was having an under drain in each of the underground systems. Basically, it's just to empty it at the end of storm. 4-inch perforated pipes are level, so you're not going to get much flow out of them, but it's basically just to bring the water level down to the next storm. So we did add a detail here. It's actually a detail that we modified from the storm sector product. So they are used to seeing it without infiltration. you know, it's just kind of, not, I wouldn't say contradicting regulations, but they want you to store the stormwater quality. But in order to do that completely, you can't let the water out. So when we didn't have to, last year, we didn't have to store the entire stormwater. We would put a small orifice in. So that's kind of the difference. I think we were successful in kind of storing the water quality line totally, as well as ensuring that this system drains down so it's ready for the next storm. And again, happy to answer number 6. 16A, I'm just gonna, George Logan did write it. Talk about it briefly from an engineering standpoint. So it's south wetlands contention or wetlands basin and the north wetlands basin be connected again with under drains. There's a berm around Moselholm at elevation 3.45, just made it 3. So it's a very shallow basin, but they are connected by an under drain, and really it's just to equalize the two basins. And then there's further under drains down near the outlet on Route 1 that'll actually just lower it just enough so the volume is preserved. It's lowering it literally just below the pre-elevation. Still be wet, still be saturated, and George will speak to that. And we added a crushed stone berm with the silt fence around there during construction, in order to protect that outlet. Also, we'll put on the necessary trash racks, if necessary, to keep flow out, keep trash or any other debris out of the underground. And also, we will visually be able to see whether the underdrains ponds are full or not going down. What's happening with the underdrains, and they will be maintained. So that's 16A, and kind of the big one, I guess. George will comment further on that. Number 21, which I spoke about already, is that sediment barrier around the outlet, lower basin, the southern basin, to the culvert area. Again, that's accessible on both sides. Daylight on both sides. Number 20. Was that 22?
That was 21.
Yeah.
22.
There is no.
Oh,
21 part of it. 20.
all right. 23, we have.
I have 22 here based on the proposed site plan.
No, that's the red part of 21.
Online, the uploaded document, you see 22.
There was a 22, I just, it was addressed. I didn't.
Do you want me to read it to you?
I got it right here. Oh, that was acknowledged, that was the. Acknowledged. So 23, we had made a mistake in the table and carried over, rainfall amounts low. It's carried to 3.46, actually close to 3.98. It went up to 4.02, which is 400ths of CFS when I changed one of the areas that Chuck bought. Which is actually item number 24. we had misrepresented the pond area. Square feet, so that again brought up the numbers just slightly. Number 25. So we calculated the velocity coming over the berm situation. The maximum 100-year storm was 22.08 cubic feet per second. It's coming over the berm about 0.3 of a foot, or almost 4 inches. And over the length of the berm, it's 110 feet. We calculated the velocity of 8.67 feet per second, which is I don't know, slow is probably not the right term. It's not moving quick enough to warrant a stone.
It's like 1/5 of a cube.
It's not a fast flow, it's basically just coming over the berm. But it's spread out. 10 feet, along this area here.
What's that berm made out of?
It's with an earthen berm. Or vegetated earthen. Again, it's only it's only this high. It's the bottom 3 and the top is 3.4. Not even 6 inches.
They're very effective.
Just slow it up. Oh,
And it's just, spread it out into the, and create those patterns, which can be on the church. So we, last 126, we kind of added 2 spot grades between the 2 ponds, between the 2 basins, and we also labeled the 3.45 contour, which is the top. Again, it's only not even 6 inches. So. You put other information in, but again, it was mostly already in there. We can. I don't think we need to add any additional information. Hopefully, agree. If we do, we appreciate whatever it accommodate us, it would be great. We're just speak to his letter, and I think we're good. Any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. George Logan, we might go out to say this. Better get everyone's hands.
Digitally.
Digit.
Yes, it is available.
So, the first thing you need to know is that I invested for this to work as far as government mitigation is concerned. And I understand that sometimes if you have the time, what you would do, you will probably put out some monitoring, some thermometers and figure some things out as far as hydrology is concerned. But I was sort of fortunate in the fact that when we did a remediation to probe quite a bit and notice what's there, notice the characteristics within the soils, which in themselves tell you a lot about the season volatility would be during the growing season. So I took cue from that. So when I looked at the final plan and discussed the trade and came up with the elevation of 309, yes, I think for the most part, that's a great elevation, except if you read the fine print, which is really bold capital print in my weather mitigation implementation, you will see under first work under it was 5 or 7 that I made a comment. The comment was that the supervising and professional scientists or the scientists would have the ability to may make small and field adjustments to achieve the result wetland hydrology, especially in the southern wetland creation area. So that's the area that's closest to the road. If you look at the current elevations, they're about 3 already. So I realized that that's not gonna cut it, so you need to go a little deeper. So that's why I put that note there. But the thing is, when you're creating basins and you're using stormwater management and stormwater in, which will temporarily flood these areas, methodologies basically change. So even an area that right now is a 3 and will be a 3 under the current plan, would still become a wetland based on the fact that you have local committee. But suspect that we might have to go a little lower, and that's I intimated to the commission the last time that I was here. But as the earthwork is done, and I'm looking at the underlying subsoils, that the adjustment might be made to go low. Now, lower is fine because it doesn't affect his calculations, because I'm going deeper within the flood pool that he's using for his volumetric and grade calculations. So the other thing too is that if you look at the little map that I provided, you will realize that this is something that came from Connecticut Eagle. And you always think this with a grain of sand, so. But it's quite obvious that the front of the property is sort of a coarse sandy wash. And that's exactly what I saw in the head. I was fortunate enough to have one picture to show you the subsoil. They had stripped the topsoil, they had put down some sandy soil on top. You could see the model that's extending into that fill. And underneath there, you have more of a grayish coarse sand, which is great because it's used to seeing water. When I was there in September of 2023, and I did the wetland remediations. Typically, September, end of September, we're still in kind of a low groundwater situation. Basically, we just come off the summer, exceptions do apply. Sometimes we've seen that. But I was still able to get a little bit of free water in some of my pools. Even, they were 18, 16, 18, 20 inches. Usually when we do our remediations, we go 20 or just slightly further. So I was able to see some free water. So based on all that information, and the fact also that when you're putting down topsoil that has good organics in it, and you keep wetting it with every storm that comes by, it creates the evaporative fringe that can relax when it happens and retain some of the water, particularly, I want to get technical now, so if the texture of the topsoil is much finer than your subsoil, which is the case here, you create what's called lithological discontinuity, and basically the water that comes in can readily, it almost hangs in that finer second, finer topsoil. And then finally, it releases in influence. But it takes a while. The texture difference that's quite a bit. As I saw for most of the rest here, it's a coarse sand, really, a loamy sand, if you will. The other thing that I note always when I have an outwash deposit, obviously in the backside of the property, as we've seen from some of this, it's got more of a dirty till, sandy till. As you come forward, you have the outwash, which kind of makes sense. So usually when we have an outwash of the sort, so you can rely on a much more stable groundwater table. So it doesn't have what we see in till, where it's here now and so on, but especially with the drainage slope. So again, my first comment was that I'm invested to make sure the level mitigation works. And so based on my notes, I will be here, someone like myself, to be the supervising professional during that time. So if I need to make some adjustments to methodology, which would mean going a little deeper, which doesn't affect his calculations, and that's what we have. And when all the planting material that we put out there, took into consideration what I think is going to happen. But if I realize that it's not exactly one-to-one situation, I'm keeping the plants. I'm just doing a little bit of an adjustment to the earthworks. So I hope that answers the question, maybe in a little bit of a circular way. that I have enough information at this point to say that this is something that will have a viable weapon resource once you're done. Any questions on that?
I do have a couple questions, but I'll save it for
Sure. We need to hear it.
from the engineer.
We hear from the,
All right. Engineer, yes.
Yeah.
So I was gonna go to our engineer next.
Yeah.
For their comments, questions, concerns, then turn it over to the public. Are there any questions from the public? And then commission questions.
we're gonna hear from the engineer.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Mr. Eaton. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm keeping on time here. Michelle Ford is also here. She's our wetlands expert. So we are definitely getting closer here. I just want to kind of go over a couple different issues with the commission. I think, the majority of the smaller technical comments have most part been addressed. Michelle and I haven't had a chance to really go through all the responses and changes to the plan and that sort of thing. But I know that, let's see, six, as far as flows and reducing the post 2-year flow to the 50% of the 2-year existing flow. It's not overly clear to me how Mr. Bettis comes up with the numbers that he has. I think that that's needs some additional justification. You can't add and subtract flows from different drainage areas without taking into consideration the time of concentration. So these different drainage areas have different times in which they peak. When those graphs are combined together, then you get the overall from the different drainage areas. So I'm not exactly sure how he comes up with those numbers, but that seems to be something that he could provide.
I do see that he did provide hydrograph calculations, but you probably haven't had a chance to review those.
Yes, but they're not set up so that you can compare apples to apples of just the portion of the site that's being developed. If you see what I mean, there's combinations of flow coming in from off-site and that sort of thing, and they're in the way the model is set up, those drainage areas are not combined such that the time of concentration is taken into account. That's.
I guess it does to me.
That's what he does.
That's what we got here. So, let's see, comment A has to do with the infiltration. One of the stormwater requirements is that you provide infiltration volume. This was previously being done through the underground infiltration chamber. If you add an underdrain to that, it will negate that infiltration. I think one of the larger underlying factors here is that we really need to see some test pits in order to see what's going on in these areas where we have the underground chambers and where we're expanding the created wetlands. Right, so Mr. Logan has explored the wetland areas, but kind of in these upland areas, what's going on with your soil profile? Could there be ledge? Could there be some other underlying issue that would impact the infiltration chamber design? Because, like I said, providing infiltration is one of the stormwater requirements. You add the underdrain, you're negating. So that kind of needs to be worked out. I don't know how that fits into your timeline and the applicant's timeline. We had said that test pits are required in the beginning of this project. I don't know if that's gonna fit into your 10-day period from now that you have left. But so there's also the issue of allowing the berms. It's like, look at the discharge of the berm going from the southern wetland to the existing wetland, but there's also a berm between the northern created wetland and the southern created wetland, which is much smaller. And so we'd like to see what the velocity is there when it's attack berm to make sure that's not growing. That's about it. If you have any questions on the wetlands, Michelle is here. Do you have any other engineering questions?
We do.
You would say,
Well, the berm is 100 feet long.
No, the berm from north to south is much narrow.
From north to south.
You have the two, you
So
have the
that's,
two created.
that's just to the east side of the actual wetland area.
So you have this created wetland here, this is the northern one, this is the southern created wetland here. You have a.
Oh,
These
it's
two,
going, oh, north, I see what you're saying.
so it's flowing north to south and then from
So
south.
the berm is actually going east to west, it's only.
Right.
Okay. I thought the berm was going along the whole length of the right side. So that's only what, 30 feet or something?
I don't know if it's that long.
Yeah, okay. And you have recharges, the underground chambers. That's near the building, closer to the building.
Right, you have two of them here to the north and then to the south. Posing to pull under drains under those.
Okay. And they should be what, at least,
It's all based on volume and depth, so that's one of the other reasons you need to have test pits. Because if you test pits, you determine where high groundwater is in these areas, you may be able to use these for infiltration and not need the underground.
right?
And then, there's still some tweaking that needs to be done with the under drain. For instance, right now, the outlet of the infiltration chambers is higher than where the under drain elevation is. So you're not gonna be able to connect the under drain. That's gonna have to get worked out.
So if they stay, if they're too big and they stay dry for too.
I haven't really seen where that's too much of an issue, because you're gonna have storms, those are gonna be inundated. There's gonna be quite a bit of water going into those chambers.
I mean, I have a question for our engineers on the wetland creation. So what is the likelihood of that being established and actually functioning? Say 2 years from,
So that's one of the reasons why we're looking for some additional test pits, and Michelle's probably more qualified than I, but
Yeah, I'd be happy to, so. My apologies to the engineers in the room, but I don't think like an engineer. And when you start talking numbers, I tend to get confused, I kind of like to think of this visually, right? And so please correct me if I'm wrong, because it probably will be, but. What I heard was that there's gonna be a overall reduction in net flow from the site, correct?
Slight reduction, yeah.
Yeah, so there'd be a reduction in water that's going out toward the wetland, right? But we're creating a bigger wetland. So the concern is, one, how is that hydrology gonna be maintained in the wetland? But also not knowing what's underneath. We know what's underneath the wetland because of what Mr. Logan did, right? You had the model soil that says, hey, I'm holding on to water. It's gonna sit here for a while. That's in the wetland. But what about in the upland? What's happening underneath there? When you get 4 feet down or 3 feet down, what do those soils look like? And like Chuck said, is there lead? is there, maybe filled for Route 1, we don't know, but what if you go in and start to create all this additional wetland area and you find that those subsoils won't hold on to the water, right? So you can put your nice topsoil and your loams and everything, but if that subsoil is not gonna hold on to the water, how are you gonna have a wetland that this whole, application is really kind of looking for? Again, maybe they can shed some light to it, but not having that test pit data, I don't really understand how it's gonna function. And I know George says he's invested and he cares, and I definitely believe that he does, but my role here is to trust but verify kind of deal. So, all the numbers sound okay, but I really don't understand because I don't have any data for here in terms of we found fairly poorly drained compacted soils that will retain this wetland hydrology and the create wetland. That's kind of for me what I need to hear. And that would say, okay, cool, we know that the wetland's gonna hold on to water to this level, this elevation. Now when it gets too high, the underdrains are gonna send it out. That makes sense to me. And so I guess that's a little bit more of the detail that I guess I would need to hear to feel a little bit better about how these wetlands are gonna function. And again, with the test pits and the infiltration, I know they said that taking infiltration out of the calculations, well, okay, but what does that mean from a practical standpoint? If we get a big, say half-inch storm or even a 2-inch storm, how much of the water is gonna go into the basin and sit there? How much of the water is gonna go down? How much of it's gonna go out through the under drain? We don't know because you don't know how fast it's gonna go down into the groundwater.
You mean like per test?
It's similar, so Chuck and I were just talking about that, and I guess that's typically how I think of it.
That's what I think.
How far how quickly the soil is going to absorb it. What if your water table's up here, your infiltration base is here, the pipe going out is right here, and the soil's already saturated, then your water's gonna be elevated, how does that change it? I don't know, but I just wanna make sure that it's going to, again, function as it should. And without that tested data, it's really unfair, because again, what if you have ledge that's right here, or your water table's way down here? So I guess it's more questions, and I apologize, I don't have the answers to them. We got the information today, trying to dive through some of it, but maybe, Mr. Lawyer, could explain it more in layman's terms.
I think Mr. Pettis got it, covered as far as, it's not gonna affect the areas north or south. I mean, east or west of this property, it's gonna be maintained still on this property. So, I mean, I think that just the next step is just getting your test pits done and do whatever samples you want to do. But it already has an existing functioning wetlands on the property.
Right.
Which is something that's been verified, but it has changed over the past 20, 30, 40 years, 60 years. And it's probably gonna change a little in the future. But I think they have that situation covered. It's not gonna run out into an expanding lot.
Right.
I think that satisfies me as.
I think I'm more worried about the water, right, and not just leach out, rather than kind of the opposite. But I agree, east to west, it should be fine, but what if that wetland is dry more often than not?
What do you think is worst case scenario? What you're thinking could happen? What's that look like?
I think they do a beautiful job on the site, and a hurricane comes.
Yeah. I'm sure that's what we want to plan for. It.
Yeah, but I don't know that we'll be able to ever plan for that, nor would any site really be able to hold to manage through something like that, right? I mean, I think everything's great on paper. I think my standpoint, 5 years down the road, 2 years down the road, not 2, because they are doing some monitoring. Let's say 5 years down the road, you have a litter filled Phragmites dominated wetland that is maybe dry half the year and bordered by mugwort. And that's like environmental nightmare, right? George cringing at that idea, but I don't think that would happen, given everything that they put in their application, right? But once that monitoring ends, once things kind of subside, invasives will come in, invasives will take over, and you can't help that. That's gonna happen in any way, no matter what, right? Litter is gonna come in, no matter how often the employees pick it up, it's still gonna happen. Do I think what they're proposing to create is better than what's there right now? Absolutely.
Yes. it
Right?
is.
I absolutely think that it is. It's just a matter of prove that it's gonna function. Right? Prove that it's gonna hold on to the water, that those plants are gonna thrive, that they're gonna survive as best as they can, then I think that's great.
Ma'am, I just saw one property, it's right up the street from there, the soils there are like sandy, really sandy, we went deep, we dug deep. And, so the water table was so high because it was a blockage from the landscape. So, and when we cleaned it all up, we went deep down. Oh, it's a sandy soil, there was no ledge back there.
Yeah.
Along that route, so I think it should be, I think the Tesla should be out there. My opinion,
Again, there's a lot riding on this, so just make sure that,
make everybody feel
well, or if Mr. Bennett can explain why that's not necessary, then we welcome that, but again, it becomes a trust that this will work, but again, the whole wetland thing hinges on the wetland's ability to hold on to that hydrology and how to report it.
better. Thank you.
I guess, do we want to hear from Mr. Pettis?
Yeah.
Well, I'll correct my mind.
Great, as engineering. You know, I appreciate the hard look at this. So one thing with the berm is contiguous all the way around at 3.45. So there's kind of no north and south. It's gonna get up to that level of, when it hits 3.45, basically it's at the top of the berm here and at the top of the berm here. And then it's gonna rise 3/10 of a foot at the 100-year storm. So it's gonna, yes, when I either misspoke or said I was looking at the 110 feet berm length this way, it's including going across to the other. So there's no short separate berm, it's all one.
This is only like 2.5 feet.
Even though it's
Short.
right, and it's less than 6 inches.
Oh, less than 6.
Yeah,
Yeah.
0.45.
It should just slow down the hydraulics in the water.
It has an existing berm.
It's the spread it out to, you know, as much as
So
possible.
Greg, can I ask you a question? Some of the sort of thing is happening, the intensity of these storms. That creates a lot of hydraulics. Will that affect it? I mean, some of these rains.
Well, yeah, the 100-year storm that we did the calculation on is 3/10 flooding over the top of the berm, you know, for this whole length. All the way down across here and across here, so. Did I say, you know, not gonna be a situation like whatever the 500-year, 1,000-year storm that just happened in North Carolina, I can't speak to that. But we did look at the 100-year velocities and they're, I wouldn't say trickle, but they're relatively low.
But that has nothing to do with the title. Types.
Right.
Types, this is rainwater coming down, it's coming out.
Okay, so tidal surge. This wouldn't flood and keep you stuck at the post road, but a tidal surge.
Yeah, the road is only at elevation 5. You get Sandy or Irene, I'm guessing it's over the road.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
How come you didn't do any test pits?
We did do test pits.
She's saying that there was no test pits.
18
Uh,
inches, 20 inches.
I can go through it. So we dug all of our test pits up in the uplands up in this area. I dug one pit that was not suitable for center down this area and solved it. One pit. George went with his auger and dug however many he dug all throughout here to establish that wetland. So those are all wetlands. To go. Say,
What kind of soil did you hit, Greg? Did you hit that?
well, like the closest one to the infiltration or the subsurface storage Had coarse sand, and 17 inches of fill, I'm going from memory, 17 inches of fill, and the rest was coarse.
Yep.
We kind of chose not to utilize that, because I felt we were pushing away from using infiltration in our systems. So we designed it a little bit bigger, changed the orifices, raised them up so we could store the water quality volume. Yes,
But why does she think you didn't do test pits?
I don't need.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Maybe not.
Right?
Yeah.
But typically for a wetland delineation, using an auger, auger's 3 feet tall, you go, you find that wetland edge, you find your upland, you're not really doing test bits, and you don't continue to do soil exploration in the upland. You know the wetlands over here, you know where the line is. So my point in saying you didn't do test bits is in the wetland creation area.
Confused.
So
Yeah.
just to build on that. Where did elevation? We don't have a lot. We don't have a lot more to go before you're,
Yeah.
hitting water, like no matter what. So that's why our basin is this deep.
Yep.
We didn't hit ledge anywhere. George didn't hit ledge with going down 3 feet with the auger. Going past 3 feet with the auger, we're gonna be one, I can tell you that. So I
Right.
don't know that I would, I'm going to do test pits, rush around and do them. I just don't think it's gonna help. I think the hydraulics speak for themselves. The system is now a wetland. All we're doing, I mean, if any area, it's the little area here, which is the lowest point on the lot. Creating a wetland, George did not delineate it as a wetland. We thought it was a natural area. Adjacent to the wetland to the east and to the north. And then this tiny little area up here, again. Some of the better soils are in and around this subsurface unit. This system is gonna be in 6 feet of fill. So, we could dig down 3 more feet or 4 more feet there, but it's not gonna help with the hydraulics. And we're not counting. Yes, put the under drain in, it's flat level, we just, perforate pipe is just small holes in it. It's not gonna come gushing out of there, it's basically just gonna lower that last little bit. If the commission sees that we should do a couple more test pits, we could do it, I just don't think it's given the elevations are really driving this. And the fact that we're, it's a fill site because of the.
I'll leave this. That's fine.
Why don't we now open it up to members of the public? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak either for, against, or neutral on this application? You don't have to. Public hearing, you're allowed to talk. Okay, I guess, is there any other questions? Either for the applicant or engineer? Staff?
Yeah, I guess for me, we always have to toe the line between what our experts say and what the experts want to build. We want to meet the middle. I guess I have an experience with test pits specifically, and I wonder is there some sort of provision that allows them to start to move forward, also oversight on this side?
Anything that we do, like in approval of the application, we'd have to set as a special condition.
Right.
Would be required to be met. In some fashion, so we can always put conditions on approval.
So in that case, I guess it would maybe ask our engineering.
Which we also need them to supply now.
Well, I think we have a couple of different pieces here. One, it's been less than 24 hours of potential review time for our experts or the commission's experts to be able to review the submitted material, right? So I think, it's a matter of asking both of you in terms of time frame, how much additional time is necessary and is you know, I guess whatever responses would be put into the records, the commission could evaluate them and then base any decision or potential future conditions on them. I think the hope is to avoid having too much design conversation happen outside of the bounds of the commission approval, so that it's not, we're not going back and forth after the fact trying to resolve design questions. So to the degree that we can answer those questions as part of the approval or review process, that's important, because so there's certain things I think that can be conditioned. So if it's, if it's, the issue being, for example, if hypothetically test pits came back and they were completely unsuitable for wetland creation, it wouldn't be necessary to meet the design parameters, then the condition would need to read something like, you've got to come back to the commission for an approval to modify your design for the site, right? So we'd have to sort of bring it back. Those kinds of conditions are within the commission's purview, but I think we need to direct them. We really need to spend some time on that.
Yeah.
So I certainly wouldn't advocate for that decision trying to come out tonight. I don't think that we're ready. We have not reviewed fully the materials that have been submitted.
There it is. I'm gonna, Mr. Bettis and the owner, I know we've been. I guess you gave up on it first. We went out there, and I know we went out again and looked at it, but you've done an awful lot of research on this. You've got people on board. I know the owner has some properties. I think that it's, something that they're gonna be ongoing as far as remediating things and checking things as time goes on, but it's a situation, I mean, how detrimental is it gonna be if, I think you've got enough engineers and experts involved. It's something that can move forward. With a positive, I don't think it's gonna be something it's gonna be detrimental. I mean, in my personal opinion, dealing with construction sites and stuff. So it seems like, there's been an awful lot of they have to research into what they do here. Creating a new wetland, they're not really creating, they're expanding it.
They're expanding.
It's moving it a little bit for what they're doing. But like I said before, it's a wetland that's been existing for, God knows how many years, but for the past 50 or 60 years, it has moved a little bit. And this is something that's going to retain its shape for a long period of time. But as far as, the soil samples and stuff like this, like Mr. Pettis did say, it's only like 3 foot, elevation. It's pretty close to there. I don't think that's gonna, I don't think there's not much you can do to change it. But creating berms is a big positive thing, creating, rechargers around the building. And that's been a requirement for a lot of buildings with big roofs and stuff like that. It's something that's coming into fruition now all over the state. And I mean, all over Connecticut for different kinds of stuff. New York City is different, out west is different, but it does capture, overflows of water pretty well. Even during hurricanes and stuff, you have a large roof, there's a heavy flow of water that comes up. Those rechargers incapacitate, it's like taking my bottle here, cutting it in half, and you have that water sitting there. That's underground, pulling it, and it's not gonna release before the rest of the water in the wetlands releases. It's gonna stay there until that's gone, then it's gonna disappear. And it's, in my opinion, it's an overkill to do here. But that's what I.
Any other comments, questions from the commission?
Yeah, I think was what I'm saying on the wetlands, it's been there for 40 years or more, and it hasn't expanded. And I think what you're gonna do is revitalize it, fix it, and make it better. It's gonna be better than it is now. That's the end game, correct? So leave there isn't a lot of work. The soil. I believe that they would do it. The other part of it didn't do the protest, that's at the lower end. And with those burdens, going across. That's really, that's impressive. You have to slow the water down. That's my opinion.
Anyone else? Commission, questions, comments?
If I understood Michelle, her major concern was that without the test beds, we run the risk that it could eventually dry out. But with the 3-foot elevation, I just want to know how likely is that? It's like a very wet soil, the likelihood that the wetland created dry out, therefore, die. So how likely is that? Did I take your credit?
Yeah. You got it.
I think in that aspect also, it's, if you consider it like a leaching field. Septic system. You have, you do protests for that to see how your leaching field is. You have clean soil, septic soil. That period of time, 10, 20 years, turns into a clay. And it doesn't soak the water or filter it long after that. So then it has to be cleaned out and redone and put in a new leaching field. So I mean, I think it's a small enough area. If that's done, or, maybe put an ultimatum, hey, let's do a perk test in 10 years, something like that, in this area. Just double check on there. And if something has to be remediated, put in clean silt, and it can be done, and it's not so big of an area. You have to take it.
And I have to add one more thing, Mr. Chairman, is okay? Man-made sand. Man-made sand. Or natural sand. If you use a man-made sand, and if you take man-made sand, which is pulverized rock, and you take it and wet it, and squeeze it with all your might and open it up, what do you have? Cement. So I would say to you, do not use man-made sand. You have to use natural sand. And that's they're out there to serve loss. That's why so many septics. A lot of people don't realize septics are failing because they're using manufactured sand. So you have to use it. I would put that as a condition. You agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know that. And they're buying their sand that's man-made, made at the pit. So that's what my concern is.
Anybody else from the commission? Okay, so, and no additional comments from public?
I don't want to beat a dead horse. First, welcome to the record. What I want to comment on is from here to here, this area is wetland. It's a wetland.
Yeah.
Here's, and we're going a little further down. Now, down. Think of this, what's wetting this wetland now, this part? Is it the surface flows that come off the grass?
No.
No.
So
It's the seasonal groundwater.
Yes.
We're not touching it, it's still gonna be there, and on top of that, we're doing that, is we're actually concentrating water in this area. Which means you're gonna have a little bit of hydraulic. Which brings the water closer to the surface. But again. I've given you sort of my idea of what I think is gonna happen here. But I have the capability, based on even the notes that I've given you, to go a little deeper, I think it's necessary. So, if you close the hearing, you have my word. That's what I'm gonna do, because that's what I already said, that's what's in my notes. If you keep the hearing open, and I'll be more than happy to go out there, I hope it goes down to 2 inches. I can open a little test bed in these kinds of soils very easily. I don't need a machine, and I can give you more information of exactly. 60 day. But I'm convinced that this is going to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have two options. If we feel like we need additional information, either from the engineer or the applicant, we can schedule a special meeting. It would need to be held next week. Steve, so that we can then close the public hearing. Public hearing needs to be closed 10 days. Or if we feel like we've gotten enough testimony and data to render a decision, we can close the public hearing. And if that happens, I would suggest that we continue the application to next month's meeting so that we get chance to digest the information on our own. Think about any conditions that we want on the application before we. So to say first, does anybody think that we need to extend our 10-day review time, schedule a special meeting?
I don't think you
Okay.
Was meeting.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Second, Eddie, any discussion on closing public meeting or public hearing? Yeah, all those voting in favor say aye. Anyone opposed or abstain? Okay, great. And then I guess if we wouldn't mind, make a motion to continue this application to our next month's meeting where decision. So can I get a motion to continue?
I'll make,
I'll make a motion. This meeting should be.
and I'll second it.
Next month's meeting is,
Oh,
not,
Does that interfere with you, Abby?
no, we don't vote on.
No, I.
Can't be. Did we do it?
No. You have to be here. Yeah. No, I'm just saying, you have to be.
Sorry, we're just trying to find when our next meeting is.
So it's big. Oh, November.
November 12th, well, a week after. Yeah, it's a weekend.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay,
So I should then move into November 12th.
okay.
I think more.
Second by Eddie, any discussion?
No,
All those voting in favor say aye.
Hi.
Anyone opposed or abstain? Okay, motion carries. Great, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I will try to fly through the next stuff because Abby's got to get out of here.
I appreciate it.
So item agenda number 5, administrative review. Right. We just got to silence.
Thank you very much for all your information.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, don't forget to return.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate all your insight.
Thank you, Mr.
I try. Steve, dumb it down a little bit from my level of understanding.
Administrative review, anything on this application? You need to administrative?
No, so there's one WDO permit that's outstanding and that's, there's information that Kathy's waiting for.
Okay. So administrative review of IWC 24-4, this is 56 West Shore Drive, Lenora Umbrello on behalf of Bob Doan. Is the applicant, Jidson Jara is the owner. This is for application for modification of a previously approved IWC permit, which was IWC 23-4. This is to modify a previous wetland permit with add 4x7 ramp, relocated float. Assessors map 14, block 4, lot 14 in the zone are restricted. The applicant has asked us to continue this application to next month's meeting so that they can engage with the tax district, the growing, to get approval to go over the property line at the. So they asked us to continue it.
There's an actual, I looked it up. there's a do not build over the line.
Now, if we get it, I don't know, but he's
I'm
asked us
just saying, it's not, it's out there, there's a do not build over that line where he extended. I think it's, the tax district
No.
came into, right. Mr. Charles. Oh, shit. I just wanted.
Got it.
So it's, that do not build. That exact, it was 69. Was do not build any lines.
I posted on the property of.
Yeah, so the tax, they own, they own the bottom, they own the bottom of the dam, they own. The polder in. There's a lot,
But they approve it.
that's up to,
That's
the polder way.
The commission's requirement under section 7.3B of the regulations, and I spoke with the town attorney today to make sure that we had the most correct recommendation from him on this, and then subsequently called the applicants to make sure they understood, was that the new activity proposed in an area that the applicant's own information does not show them as the owner. 7.3B in your regulations requires that the owner of record provide written consent for the application to proceed. And so, the owner of 56 West Shore Drive indicated to staff today that they are proceeding with a conversation with the tax district about the status of that ramp and float. And wanted this next month from the commission's perspective to see whether or not you were going to be able to act on the application with the owner's consent, or if they would have to withdraw and go back to previous conditions. So this is kind of a time opportunity for the owner to have that conversation with the folks who represent the tax district.
And that came from Boulder Lake,
No, that came from the applicant requested,
okay,
with the understanding that the town attorney is advising the commission that action on this application hinges on that permission.
it's actionable, right? If it's not, if it's not
You,
conducted right, it's actionable.
if you don't procedurally in your record, the consent of the owner for this particular application, the advice of the attorney is that the application could not be approved by.
Okay, that's all I want.
For a procedural matter, not for an evaluation of the activity.
No,
itself,
Here.
but for procedurally within section 7.3B.
Okay.
All right, so give them a chance to meet with the tax.
Yeah.
Maybe they can hash it out, maybe.
I'll see you in a month again.
Yeah, so can I get a motion to continue? It's IWC 24-4 to next month's meeting.
I'll make a motion to, continue IWC point.
Any discussion on continuing it?
Maybe on the 12th.
Yes.
Okay.
All those voting in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed or abstained? Okay, let me go through the rest of this. I don't think that there's really any correspondence, Sherry, right?
No, the only thing that came up was the, we've got a notice that their annual meetings, and I'll be sending out an email to you tomorrow.
Old business, I don't think, does anyone have any old business to discuss on?
Oh, yeah,
You got
because
business?
it was asked at one of our segments. If we had a public site, is the public invited to go on to the sidewalk with us? Do they need permission from me? This is very important, because if we're going to your house and we have a sidewalk, so could people from the public go there?
So two things, yeah, two things. So when I spoke with the town attorney, the
That's-
language of our applications is now under review by the town attorney to see whether or not the necessary permissions are inherently granted by submitting an application to the Inland Wetlands Commission or any commission for that matter. And a site visit is conducted because it's a public meeting.
Right,
There's two things that can happen. One, the owner gives consent Two, if the owner doesn't give consent, the meeting cannot continue because it is a public meeting, so it has to be open to the public.
Okay,
And the language of our applications can be amended such that that permission is granted by virtue of submitting the app.
I want, let me ask you another question. What if somebody falls and gets hurt on that?
So the particulars of the liability piece, some of it's circumstantial and
Liability.
there's certainly that. I think the reality is if something like that happens, folks come after everyone, and down is certainly one of those.
Probably the
right?
same as dinner there and flipped it out, right? And somebody's insurance, it's gonna be linked, it's gonna be insurance.
We sue everyone.
Well, everybody asks, I mean, we all ask.
Yeah.
Everybody in this commission asks, and we wanted to know.
So
So I-
the reality is that probably anybody who carries insurance at that point is going to be brought into something, right? If it's gonna go in that
They should
direction.
come up.
But each
They come out.
situation.
We have a meeting,
So the commission members, when acting sort of in their roles as the commission, are sort of under that town insurance component.
okay, so.
Only if you push,
Huh?
only if you push.
My question, okay, here, let me just put this in nuts and bolts. Well, if somebody run a sidewalk, and the owner says, I don't, nobody's coming on my property except the commissioners.
No, the end of the meeting is.
And then we just say, this meeting's adjourned, walk away. Okay. Very good, thank you very, very much.
New business, I don't have any new business. Care comments, I don't have any, so with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, so good.
Any discussion?
You get out, Mike, you get out.
Which way, yeah,
Aye.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby, for clarifying that.
Thanks.